But you mentioned Suzuki coming back tomorrow then, right?
Yeah, man, he's going to
Yeah,
be there
that's
for the whole.
that's
I know we're going to
incredible.
do this series recap, but it's kind of funny looking ahead that the Cubs are going to run into a Pirates team that's below 500, but is getting Paul Skeens on Saturday. So
1-2, swinging a drive toward right center. Back goes Robert, back near the stands. That ball is gone. A game-winning home run for Chris Morel. Can you believe it? Listen to this crowd.
welcome back to the Brotherly Cubs podcast. I'm your little brother, Zach.
And I'm your older brother, John.
We are your brothers who love everything Cubs baseball. If you enjoy talking about the Cubs, then hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and join us every week as we dive into the power, the speed, and the best team in the National League.
We'd like to start off each podcast with a playful question for all 69 of our subscribers.
Nice. We encourage you to put your answer in the comments.
Today, Zach, I ask you, if one of the Cubs had to switch positions for a game, which player would you most want to see play a different position?
Good question, John. I'm going to just stick with the minor leagues, actually. Let me give you two answers. I'm going to go with Michael Busch. I want to see him play second and or third, just to see. Like, I just want to see. I just want to see it. And then I also want to see minor leaguers, guys like, Matt Shaw and Owen Casey. I want to see Matt Shaw play like all around the infield just to see if he's comfortable anywhere else, other than maybe second or third.
That's a great answer. My mind immediately went to Christopher Morel. Obviously, people have been kind of looking at him, and he's actually done a pretty decent job at third base. I'd like to see him at catcher. That's kind of wild, right? But he's got a cannon of an arm. That's kind of a hot take tonight here, but on the Brotherly Cubs podcast. No, he's got a cannon, and so I think that'd be interesting to see if he plays catcher, like what's his percentage of caught stealing.
Yeah, I mean, that would be interesting. I think you're mentioning that because the catchers, Miguel Amaya, Yan Gomes, have been terrible offensively, right?
I mean, defensively maybe okay, but just offensively, yeah, pretty putrid. I mean, Yan Gomes, I don't know where that magic has gone from last year, but he's really tanked off, and so that's kind of sad. And then Miguel Amaya is just kind of, I don't know. I kind of had a little bit higher expectations for him offensively, dating back, I mean, at least a few years ago to when he was a young prospect coming up.
Yeah.
So hopefully maybe as the weather gets warmer and the birds start chirping and spring's here and they start hitting magically.
I hope so. You want gas money to come in for you. In this economy, we really need that gas money, aka Yan Gomes. For the audience that doesn't know that, it's sort of like a anagram of his name just flipped around. So yeah, I mean, I could see wanting more out of certain positions for sure. Maybe even left field. Can someone else play left field? I wanted to give a shout out to some of our Facebook comments on the official Cubs fan group on Facebook. Shout out to Scott Nichols. His idea of moving Dansby Swanson to DH while apparently his knee has been he hurt his knee on a slide, I guess, in Houston, or against Houston, I should say. I was at Wrigley a while ago. Heard it. It might be an excuse, honestly. The Cubs keep doing this whole they're banged up, but they're giving him days off. So I think he said to move. What was it? It was move Horner to short, move Morel to second, which he's really good at second as well, and then move and then Wisdom to third. Obviously, if Wisdom starts hitting again, we know he's a good hitter. That could inject some offense. I mean, at this point, anyone would probably go for Wisdom over Swanson as an upgrade, right? So just because Swanson's not even lifting the ball in the air at all.
Yeah, offensively, yeah.
And also shout out to Chris Kaufman. He said move Ben Brown to closer, which I really liked that because it wasn't like moving a positional player. It was like move him into this role. And I'm actually not opposed to it. I'd like to see him use a multi-inning role, but very soon here, the Cubs are going to be in actually a really interesting position where they'll get to have several guys in a multi-inning role if they need. If that becomes something they need in certain starts, they have the ability to do that, and the quality of their bullpen is going to get better as the rotation gets even healthier. Still missing Kyle Hendricks, set to have his third rehab start this week. and still missing guys like Drew Smiley and, of course, Jordan Wicks. But the biggest injury news here as we recap the last week against the Brewers and Padres is that Justin Steele came back on Monday. He pitched almost 5 innings, shutout ball. The Cubs rotation has been absolutely dynamite recently, and having Steele back is so huge for the bullpen. Like we mentioned, Ben Brown moving into the bullpen from his starter spot. And then the Cubs also got Bellinger back on Tuesday. He's going to DH for now. Very soon he will be manning center. And then Seiya Suzuki is going to come back. As of recording, today is a Thursday. It's an off day. Suzuki will be back on Friday. When they activate him, I expect either Miles Mastrobuoni will go down or PCA. I'm actually expecting probably PCA will go down. Just depending on how ready Bellinger is to take over center field. If they think he's not going to play center field for a few games, then I think PCA stays up to play defense. I'd actually prefer PCA stay up and Mastro goes down.
Right.
But that's going to make
Swanson too, right?
Yeah. I mean, Swanson could go on the 10-day injury list, backdated a few days, but they'd have to really have seen something in the knee and not just like a giving him a breather type thing. I don't think you'd want to phantom IL Dansby Swanson.
No, I think. I think that's just kind of my point was to keep Mastro in for instead of PCA, which I'm sure not many people would want to do that, obviously, but they want to see PCA rake. But if Swanson is in fact injured more than he's letting on, and because I could see him doing that, I could see him playing through something like that. Then Mastro would make more sense just to kind of give Dansby a breather or two. Or heaven forbid, I mean, he's injured. That'd be like really injured. That'd be terrible. But yeah.
I mean, if he goes on the injured list, that's not the end of the world if he absolutely needs it,
Yeah, but you mentioned Suzuki coming back tomorrow, then, right?
Yeah, man, he's going to be there for the whole. I know we're going to do this series recap, but it's kind of funny looking ahead that the Cubs are going to run into a Pirates team that's below 500, but is getting Paul Skeens on Saturday. So, and they also have a fire throwing starter named Jared Jones, who's been really pretty good for them. They also have David Bednar and Aroldis Chapman. So this isn't going to be as easy of a series as you might think it is.
No.
I know Ian Happ is from like the Pittsburgh area, so
hint. Time to bust it out, man.
Yeah, I mean, come on, man.
This is ridiculous. You kind of wonder as this goes on. I mean, I don't know how you feel about this, Zach, but Owen Casey is right there.
He hasn't hit for power though.
Phantom IL, Ian Happ.
Yeah, I mean, there may still be a 40-man roster spot open. I haven't really checked in a while.
Yeah,
that might be something cool to know.
Or send down Mastro.
Well, you got to create a 40-man position if it's not open. So, but I think Colton Brewer will take care of that very quickly here in the next. Although he's been really good actually in his low leverage role. I mean, that's something that we haven't been able to say about Alzolay. I think he's only pitched in low leverage the last couple of appearances. But so let's get back to sort of some series recaps here. So we like to reminisce about some good stuff that's happened. The Cubs are 22-16. They are in second place in the Central. The Brewers just won today. Time recording, but the Cubs are holding steady right before they get healthy, and they play the Pirates and Braves. I think they play just the Pirates and Braves for 12 straight games. Kind of interesting. That's looking further ahead. So we'll see how they do this next half of a month here. But the Cubs did have a homestand after their little quick road trip out east. They come back home to Chi-Town. They beat the Brewers 2-1. That series victory felt really good at Wrigley. Obviously, they lose 1-3 to start the series. 6-5. That was against Adrian Hauser, and then they won 5-0 against Freddie Peralta. So I thought that was really awesome. The Cubs were able to score some runs, as you can tell. They haven't scored that many runs in the last couple weeks, averaging only about less than 3 runs per game. But in that same time, the Cubs' starter ERA, is number 1 in the major leagues since I think April 19th, per Chris Kamka on Twitter. But I think he works for Marquee Sports Network. I know he used to work for NBC. I'm pretty sure he used to work for NBC Chicago. But that's incredible that the Cubs have the best starter ERA, and that starter ERA helped them out quite a bit in this series. The starters didn't give up any earned runs against the Brewers. That helped them hold serve against Peralta. The bullpen continued to struggle. They almost lost a 5-run lead, so it was 5-0, then 5-4, then 6-4. Neris comes on, gives up 1 run. Obviously, Keegan Thompson was involved in that fiasco, but they escaped that game. They call him Nervous Neris, the cardiac Cubs. They get that save, and then they pull out the next win, handily, very easily, and shut out the Brewers. So this has kind of been an up and down team in a way. I mean, they're a winning team, but they find some ways to win, but their offense is struggling and the bullpen is struggling. So it's a tough one. But I don't know. Any thoughts about sort of that Brewers series?
I think it was Hauser's with the Mets, right? I think you mentioned Adrian Hauser, but he's with the
right. Yeah, I was thinking of
Tobias Myers. I think was the pitcher that game, the 6-5 game.
Right.
But what were you gonna say?
Yeah, so they took. So it was Myers. They took. I think it was Hauser that they didn't score that many runs off of. Right. But he was
on the Mets series. Yeah, and they should have.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think what was it? Who was after the Brewers? What was that series?
Padres.
Yeah, the Padres. One of those Padres pitchers.
Randy Vasquez.
I think he had Vasquez. He had like a 5-something ERA. And I don't think they did that well off of him, right?
Well, I'm thinking of Joe Ross pitched the first game of that series.
Oh, yeah.
So for some reason, I was thinking of Hauser because I thought of the Mets series and how we're facing these pitchers with bad ERAs like Joe Ross. And sometimes we're getting some runs, but other times we're not. And so, you see...
Yeah.
You have Joe Ross. The Cubs lose 1-3 in that game. Very frustrating. Then they come out. They score 5 runs against Tobias Myers, like a AAA type pitcher. So they scored. They beat him, and then they beat Peralta. But then they come out and against the Padres to recap that series. Joe Musgrove goes on the injured list, and up comes Randy Vasquez, a no-name pitcher from AAA, who was not good in AAA, and he. Shuts the Cubs down basically.
Yeah.
So I don't really understand, I guess. But so that game the Cubs won. They found a way to win, right? So they lost the series to the Padres, and the offense looked pretty ugly, even though we got Bellinger back. To recap game 1, Steele comes back. That was awesome to see him come back. I was thinking of a funny tagline before this episode, like something goofy, like "belly full of steel," because we got Bellinger back and we got Steele back, Man of Steel. Yeah. He only threw 70 pitches, and so
but he's really efficient.
Yes, and the good thing was that he looked good and that he's healthy. And I know next time going out he'll throw 80, 85. The bullpen obviously really. It's funny because we talked about Thompson really did not pitch well that previous series against the Brewers, and the Cubs tried to send Thompson down for Steele, and that's what they did for a game. And then Palencia pitched that game that Steele pitched, and then Palencia went down with shoulder inflammation. So we can't catch a break, you guys.
We really can't.
We've had such a busy time reporting on injuries on this podcast.
That's all we report on. It's just we report on the injuries. It's not even the
Dansby Swanson's got a broken knee,
broken heart. Yeah, it's frustrating. I mean, the fact that they're only half a game back of first place.
Yeah, that's
still
crazy.
Not bad. And we're getting Suzuki back. Yeah, we're getting Suzuki back Friday.
Yeah.
So offensively, I think that's everybody, right? I mean, obviously Bellinger's going to take a minute to kind of get his win back and
I mean, he's the one who's not going to actually. It sounds like Suzuki's ready to play defense, a muscular injury, but it should be a slow. I don't want to say a slow return, but you don't want to rush him back.
No.
But at the same time, if he's fully healthy and able to play right field, it sounds like. I mean, Bellinger still has technically broken ribs.
Yeah, that's what kind of worries me is that they're rushing him, or he's rushing, and so that's I don't know if they've done imaging or what, or if they're just going off of how he's feeling and what he's doing on the field. So I just hope he's not playing through it. Well, it's May. I mean, it's the beginning of May. Yeah. Please do not rush this. We want you for the long haul, Bellies.
Yeah.
We can survive maybe another week or two.
Yeah.
our offense needs a jolt, and he did homer, I think, when he returned, right?
He did homer. He did homer in the return in the fourth inning of that game, which was the Shoutout Imanaga, another masterpiece outing by him.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm also a little worried, but I know last year Marcus Stroman came back from a similar cartilage rib.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it wasn't a broken rib, but he had rib issues, and he came back, I think, in about a few weeks or so. Might have been longer, but he had to ramp up too. So
Right.
depends on the pain. It's possible he can play through it. If he's not in pain, they might heal maybe even within a few weeks. So he might only be like another week away from being in that position, right? So we'll see how he goes in terms of how he's feeling.
Mm-hmm.
If he's not feeling well, then obviously it would suck to have to put him on the 10-day. But even if he just goes down on the 10-day or something, the good news is Tauchman is hitting, and that's been pretty valuable for this team. So
yeah, they have. I was just going to say they have the pieces to to substitute out Belly and to kind of pick up the slack. They just have to hit. Like you said, the offense is just kind of stagnant and
I mean, it's not Bellinger's replacement. It's everyone else around the team.
Right.
I mean, catchers aren't hitting. Swanson, Happ, they're not hitting. Horner and Tauchman are hitting, and Morel is, and then Bush is like just struggling. He's swinging at the high pitch. Speaking of swinging at the high pitch, the Cubs go down 2-1. They're up 1-0. Imanaga comes on for the eighth. Weird move by Counsell at 95 pitches. Gives up a 2-run homer to Jurickson Profar. Leaves 2-1. Morel ties the game on a sac fly in the eighth. It goes 2-2. The Cubs bring it to the bottom of the ninth. Lightning strikes. Rain is falling. High fastball by Aniel de Los Santos, and Michael Bush launches it 427 feet or so to center field. So right as the lightning struck, he hit it, and it was at the top of the zone. So that was an amazing victory there, the 3-2 win. And they needed that because they lost the next one to Dylan Cease, who absolutely dominated the Cubs. And that was a tough one. When you're struggling as a team to score, you just try and take a silver lining. What do we do right? We didn't get swept, things like that. What do we got to do better? Well, there's a light at the end of the tunnel for the bullpen. I do believe. And the offense, I think, will come back. Bellinger, like you said, he homered. I think he had a 3-hit game when he came back. That is so impressive. I mean, he was down for 2 weeks. He didn't even have a rehab start. Suzuki just finished his rehab start today with Iowa, only 2 games down. So if he comes back hitting, he had a couple hits and a walk and a stolen base.
Wow, okay.
In his first game back.
That's big because that your obliques,
running,
I mean, I would think that's huge for his confidence and trusting it. And Bellinger's the only person that I'd really worry about coming back right now from the injured list. Not even Steele, not even Suzuki. It seems like they're taking their time with those guys, but Bellinger's the only one that I just kind of worry about. So
I hope they do imaging and find out how he's doing. We haven't heard anything about Merriweather. That's been very frustrating. I'm hoping that they get some more information about him because I just like the bullpen to finally form into shape, to what we really know it's going to be. Right now, Leiter has been really good. Neris has honestly turned it around a little bit. I mean, he still dances into trouble, but he finds a way out of it. So it's not sustainable what he's doing, but maybe Ben Brown can at least pitch late inning. They just need to get a little bit more health. Palencia, I'd like to see him back. Thompson actually looks good for the most part. The problem I have with Keegan Thompson is not his stuff, because right now he's hitting 95, sweeper, curveball, cutter. Like, he's got a good arsenal. He can strike guys out. He struck out 3 Padres, I think, the last time he pitched. So that's impressive. But I will say the fact that he can't pitch on back-to-back days, and you saw this with Palencia. Palencia pitched on a Sunday, was thrown 101, dotting it, and we were excited. I think he closed out one of the games against the Brewers. He comes to pitch in the game that Steele pitches in, right? And he's thrown 95, 96. So his velocity is down 4 ticks. And I wouldn't normally be that worried, but if you can't throw on back-to-back days, it's a little bit harder to trust them in late inning leverage, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, think about the postseason, right? I mean, like, if you're going to be that just seems odd to me that, oh, okay, I pitched 20 or so pitches, I'm done, coach. Like, I can't pitch tomorrow. Like, that just
Yeah.
seems odd to me. Like, is your conditioning not up to par? Is like, that just seems weird. I don't know. Maybe it's, not that uncommon as I think it is, but I don't know.
Well,
Also, we're mentioning velocity. I was pretty encouraged to see, Steele up to, I think, was it 94, 94, 95, something like that, which is back to his normal, velocity. I think opening day, he was real. It was, what, 89, I think, or 90? I mean,
it was like 91, 92, but then it fell off pretty
okay.
quickly. So I think
Yeah.
maybe his conditioning he was starting to get tired, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, but yeah, Keegan Thompson, not able to pitch on back to back, or no, was it Palencia and
Both of
Thompson,
them.
right?
Both damn.
So then you can't pitch him on the same day, then, right? That wouldn't make any sense to pitch.
Yeah. You literally have to stagger them.
That's crazy.
You're missing a guy like Luke Little at the
Right.
AAA level. He hasn't thrown that many strikes. I looked up, and so you have Richard Lovelady as the lone lefty. That's some heavy alliteration there. Lonely
lefty
Richard
Lovelady.
Lonely lefty Richard Lovely.
Lonely. Yeah.
So Drew Smiley will replace him at some point. Colton Brewer will be replaced. Alzolay is going to eventually have to get it together, or risk going on the 60-day phantom super injured list, and risk his career really being put into question if he can't get outs. Just get outs, period. Get it even some medium leverage. I'm talking 2-1 game. Don't blow the game open. Keep us in it. Right. So we're not asking for 3 strikeouts in the inning, just asking for a strikeout and some weak contact. So we'll see. I mean, there is going to be some regression back to the mean a little bit. This isn't like a poorly developed team like the White Sox or something. Even then, they have Michael Kopech. Like, the Cubs should go and get him.
Yeah.
Or Tanner Scott in the next month. I would say they need to if they don't get Merriweather back early June, like if he doesn't start recovering quickly, I think in early June those conversations need to heat up, because the Cubs have a bevy. They have riches in the prospects. They have top 100 prospects. They don't even need to give up top 100 prospects. They have the top 30 guys that are on the bubble of the top 100 that would be enticing to a team like the Marlins that is cheap, that could use prospects. That's something they might want a pitcher. Take, Wisniewski or Thompson.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, there's time. I think Jed Hoyer was quoted recently. I can't remember where it was from, but I saw it on the way home, that he was just kind of, saying that he saw the Luis Arraez trade already happening. And I guess that there was already rumblings out there, but he said that, he doesn't see trade activity picking up until later on, obviously a lot later on in the season. So, I mean, it could happen if we really feel like there's a need,
Yeah.
Like you said, if Merriweather really is not making it back by June, which would be really discouraging, then that might force our hand, and like you said, we don't have to give up a top 100 prospect or two, maybe one of our top 30 guys, but to get somebody like Tanner Scott, I think he could easily be had if, they're willing to trade Luis Arraez.
Yeah,
Scott
I didn't really see what that trade package looked like, but I think it was a decent one, but also it's a weird one for San Diego because they had a second baseman, Xander Bogaerts, that cost them like $300 million.
Right.
So, and they have Ha-Sung Kim, and they have like so many good infielders.
Right.
It's kind of just amazing to me how many infielders they like to have. Eventually, they should get an outfielder. I mean, they have Jackson Merrill, and they have Jurickson Profar, but it's like, man, you guys have a lot of infielders. He's going to be their DH. I loved that trade happened like 3 days before we played the Padres. It was like, and that Dylan
now
Cease
Paul
trade,
Skeens is coming to face us.
Yeah, and then that Dylan Cease trade. We haven't played the White Sox once yet, which makes sense because it's May, but we've faced Dylan Cease twice, and it's May 9th. I mean, who made this schedule?
Luck.
We have a ridiculously hard schedule in the first half. The good news is, as it gets hot out in the summertime, the schedule gets light. Like it gets a lot easier. You start actually facing the NL Central, which is not a good division. There's only 2 teams that are really like above 500. Right. So the Reds lost 8 games in a row.
Mhm.
uh,
Are they really?
yeah, they were actually an above 500 team because they were right with us. And I think they're
Wow.
like 5 or 6 games under now. So yeah, they lost 8. I was shocked to see that too. I was like, eight in a row.
What happened to the first place Pirates?
They have also lost 8. No,
They're now 4 or 5 back. I think they're 5 back.
somewhere around there.
Yeah.
They're not gonna right now. They're not competing. We don't want to let them back in with us and
No.
the Brewers. Obviously, like you don't want to get swept. If anything, you're facing Jared Jones. You're facing Paul Skeens. Whoever you face on that third game, you have to basically beat them. I don't want to prelude any negativity or any injury news, but Twitter is concerned that Jameson Tone would have pitched on Sunday,
Mhm.
or at the very least this weekend, and there's a TBD on Sunday. So it looks like they're skipping Tyone for this
Yeah.
series. We'll see if he pitches against the Braves. It's possible the Cubs try and finesse a Hendricks return on Sunday.
Yeah,
because
no.
they just said he's restarting again at. So Wisniewski pitched really well. To recap that game, which was the 3-0 game, Wisniewski
Yeah.
threw a quality start, 6 innings, 3 runs, and I think like 7 hits. And he's not walking guys anymore, and he looks good, right? He gets whiffs. He's getting lefties out. Like I saw a really interesting stat. Wisniewski he's like 3rd or 4th in the league in barrel percentage. Meaning
Wow.
there's only 3 other pitchers that are getting barreled up less than Wisniewski. So for the audience that doesn't know, barrel is like when a guy hits a ball so well that the exit velocity in terms of the contact and the launch angle of how the ball is flying comes off a certain way to where it's like a guaranteed base hit or extra base hit. That's a barrel. So
Yeah.
Wisniewski's not giving up a lot of those, which is a really good sign. So I think they should keep him in the rotation.
And
But
when you barrel a pitcher up, and the camera automatically pans to the catcher, like in the show.
yeah,
It's like,
There's-
and it's gone.
or yeah, if the camera just shoots to the outfielder and the outfielder's got his hands on his hips, that's a barrel.
It's a barrel.
The irony of that is Kyle Hendricks was Mr. Barrel for about a whole month.
That's not a good thing, just for the folks at home.
Mr. Barrel.
Mr. Barrel.
He was giving
Yeah.
up just rockets left and right. He had some soft contact in which he was getting screwed, but then he'd follow that up with barrels, home
You know, it'd
runs.
be-
So
I thought of this earlier, but it'd be hilarious if the whole time, like his whole career, Kyle Hendricks has been preserving his arm and throwing 89, maybe 90, but then you move him into the closer role and he throws gas and he just throws
closer,
like 90s.
yeah.
He could just let it loose. He knows he's,
Yeah.
that'd be hilarious.
He
But
just-
it won't happen, I know.
I'm trying to figure out that transformation, how that would even work, but
It won't. I'm just
I'd like to
Just-
dream about it.
I like to dream. I do, we mentioned this way up in earlier in the podcast about, or you had mentioned Chris Kaufman, one of the audience members, talking about Ben Brown for a closer too. Or
Yeah.
high leverage closer, yeah. Which I would love to see that. I don't know what his confidence level would be being that young and coming into that difficult of a spot, but he seems to have handled himself pretty well at the major league levels. I wouldn't mind giving him a shot at a few games at least,
I'd like to give him a 9th inning role or like a.
eighth
What I like to
inning.
do is I'm so surprised he didn't pitch at all in the Padres series.
Yeah, a lot of people are mentioning that. You mean like or the Shoutout game?
Well, yeah, I mean, so Shota going out on the 8th was just bonkers to me because he threw 95 pitches at that point. So normally you don't
That's-
send a guy out to throw like 110.
Well,
But-
that speaks to his, counsel's confidence
The
and the
bullpen.
bullpen. So I mean,
But I thought he was going to pitch with Justin Steele because Steele
Ben Brown.
Steele was on a pitch count and he threw literally 4 2/3 and he didn't go 5. And
Right.
Steele goes 5 typically. He's on a pitch count. So that's a
Right.
perfect opportunity to throw Ben Brown out there for like 3 innings and get yourself to the end of the game. But I like him in a 2 to 3 inning role. Alzolay did that a little bit at the start of his career when he wasn't starting. He'd come into the bullpen, someone to throw 5 or 6 innings, he'd throw 3 or 4 innings. And that was like an awesome, I loved that, seeing that. And so I'm not saying Ben Brown needs to come in and pitch 3 innings every time he pitches, because then he'll only get to see him every 3 days. But maybe that's what he does to start with. And then eventually they get him adapted to pitching like on short rest. I would also like to see like someone pitches, or let's say he enters the game in the 8th inning and we're
Mhm.
up and then we tack on runs, it becomes lower leverage, and he pitches the ninth. He pitches like multi innings, or gets a 3 or 4 run lead. Medium leverage to high leverage, and just see how he does in like a closer role that has a comfortable lead, right? Maybe at home, or just get him in the game, dude, because he can't sit there for 8 days. Like at this point, it's gonna have been Steele would have been the 5th spot, and so it's gonna be like 8 days that he had last pitched. So he's got to get in a game.
And also, I mean, he's young too. I mean, you could think about maybe getting like in the playoffs if he needs if you need a 4-out save. I feel like he's one of those arms that could do that.
Yeah.
I think they need to do what you had said, low leverage, late inning, and then eventually transition him into a closer role. I think they could do that. I think he could do that, but I mean, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, it's worth a shot because
at least for right now, right? Until they trade for someone.
Yeah, give it. You're gonna need, and they're gonna need guys like when they get Wicks back, they're gonna need either Wicks to do that or Javier Assad to go back into the bullpen and pitch like a bullpen pitcher. Like I'm talking 2 innings, day off, and then pitch another. He's gonna have to pitch high leverage. But the good news about Javier Assad is 1, he has bullpen experience. It's not something he's never done before. He's done it a few times. And 2, he's like one of the best in the league, like top 5, top 10 on holding on average with runners in scoring position. So if you look at some of these characteristics of the guys that might shift in the bullpen, Ben Brown's got strikeout stuff, high whips, and this year he's shown an ability to not walk as many guys. Javier Assad keeps runners on, and Wisniewski is not getting barreled up. So those guys are all, and Wisniewski has bullpen experience too. So all these guys have experience, and they're getting like whiffs or they're getting weak contact. And if Hendricks comes back and pitches, even if he doesn't pitch lights out, it shifts the entire depth of the rotation into the bullpen to replace Palencia or to replace Alzolay pretty much. I'm feeling okay still. I mean, I'd like to give it another few weeks. If they start getting crushed by like the Pirates and the Braves here, got to be pretty like even keeled about the Braves series. But after that, if they start losing games, they don't figure out the bullpen, then I bet they'll make an early trade.
Right. Also, I think I'm not sure if we mentioned, but Jordan Wicks will throw. Well, let's see. This says he was going to throw a bullpen session Tuesday.
Yeah, he should have already thrown a bullpen.
Yeah.
So we should be hearing about the recovery of that bullpen and then the next steps, like literally tomorrow.
Yeah. So I mean, that's. It says he'll need to face hitters and will probably be asked to make a rehab start or 2 before being considered an option to rejoin the rotation. So I mean, he's also one that you could maybe put into. Would you put him in the bullpen though, or is he a starter? He started on the season. Started the season as a starter, right? I mean,
I think he's mostly started. Like I can't see him really being in the bullpen. Yeah. But that's why I think like Assad deserves to start, but also he has bullpen experience. So you could experiment. Like you could do a 6-man rotation for 1 week and then see how it goes. Or you could also put Wicks back in when he's ready and then have Assad go back into the bullpen. Because right now you just need like high quality bullpen arms, like as much as you can get your hands on right now.
Well, I was thinking lefties too. I mean, I guess that's why I mentioned that because I don't know.
Maybe
besides Lovelady.
I mean, yeah, it's
looking like Lovelady.
Lovelady luck. You'd probably send Lovelady down when Wicks comes up.
Yeah.
So or Drew Smiley. Like I don't think they're going to end up they may end up having 2 lefties in the bullpen at a time, but I don't know. These are all really good questions because when you start to write, I wrote it on paper this week, and I was just like, you start to literally fill in a gap, like a spot in the bullpen. And you can write 3 names and then just write a slash next to each name. Hey, Thompson, Palencia, or Little at some point, or Smiley and Assad and this guy or whatever. It gets really complicated. I think injuries will sort of help answer that question over time, right? So Wicks still needs recovery. Like he still needs to throw like a rehab start, and he's faced live BP. So
yeah, he's still, maybe at least a week and a half.
Yeah,
away. I mean, so
if it's just one start, yeah. he makes. If he makes 2. Yeah. Exciting times, though. Any closing thoughts before we wrap up here?
I'm just personally like looking ahead. I'm looking forward to Suzuki being back and, seeing hopefully he can jolt the offense a little bit and or at least get some, he can get on base. Like you said, he drew a walk and I think a couple hits this week. So looking forward to his return and his defense. He's got great defense as well. Great arm. I'm just looking forward to Belly, and seeing what Belly does this week, and hopefully our bullpen can keep it together. And looking forward to stringing some wins together, at least against the Pirates.
Yeah, just try not to suck, bullpen. Just be okay. Don't be great. Just be okay.
What about you, Zach? Any closing thoughts?
That's it. It's just the bullpen to just be okay. Give me like a 3.8 ERA. You don't need to give me a 2. Just give me 1 or 2 runs every few innings, and I'm fine.
Right. Don't be 12th in the National League and ERA, and
you might as well just say last in the league.
4th, yeah, 4th to last in walks. That's all we can hope for is just some kind of improvement.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us here on the Brotherly Cubs podcast. Hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications, or join the conversation with us on Twitter at Brotherly Cubs or Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I'm your big brother, John.
And I'm your little brother, Zach.
And we will see you next week as we recap the 3-game set versus the Pirates and the Braves. Until next time, thanks for tuning in for the pod, and we will catch you later.
Listen to this crowd.